Hello everyone, we're in London and today we will discover this wonderful city by walking through its streets and checking out some of the wonderful places and monuments that it has to offer in a short visit through the city on Thames. If you've enjoyed our videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel by hitting that subscribe button so you can learn even more interesting things about the next place you're thinking of visiting. London is the capital and largest city in England and the United Kingdom, with a population of approximately 8.8 million. The city that lays on the River Thames is a very old one, with its ancient core being founded by the Romans under the name of Londinium, which still retains its medieval boundaries. Since the 19th century, the name London has also referred to the metropolis around this core. Historically divided between the boroughs of Middlesex, Essex, Surrey, Kent, and Hertfordshire, and since 1965 has largely included the area called Greater London, which is governed by 33 local authorities and the Greater London Authority. As one of the great cities of the world, London exerts a strong influence on the arts, entertainment, fashion, commerce, finance, education, healthcare, media, science, technology, tourism, transport, and communications. This is the largest urban economy in Europe and is one of the major financial centers in the world, with the highest concentration of institutions of higher education in Europe. It is home to some of the highest academic institutions in the world, such as the Imperial College of London in Natural Sciences, the London School of Economics in Social Sciences, and the University College of London. London is the most visited city in Europe and has one of the busiest airport systems in the world and the oldest rapid transport system in the world, the London Underground. London's diverse cultures span over 300 languages, and its metropolitan area is the third most populous in Europe, with approximately 14 million inhabitants in 2016, giving London the status of megacity. London has 4 World Heritage Sites: the Tower of London, Kew Gardens, the Palace of Westminster, Westminster Abbey, and St. Margaret's Church, and also the historical settlement of Greenwich, where the Royal Observatory, Greenwich, defines the prime meridian of 0 degrees longitude and the Greenwich Mean Time, or GMT. Other landmarks include the Buckingham Palace, the London Eye, Piccadilly Circus, St. Paul's Cathedral, Tower Bridge, and the Trafalgar Square. London has many museums, galleries, libraries, and cultural venues, including the British Museum, the National Gallery, the National History Museum, Tate Modern, the British Library, and numerous theatres in the West End. Major sporting events held in London include the FA Cup Final, the Wimbledon Tennis Championships, and the London Marathon. In 2012, London became the first city to host 3 Summer Olympics. We found the Southwark Cathedral, or the Cathedral of St. Saviour and St. Mary Overie, which is on the south bank of the River Thames, close to the London Bridge. This is the mother church of the Anglican Diocese of Southwark. A place of Christian worship for more than 1,000 years, it was made into a cathedral only since the creation of the Diocese of Southwark in 1905. Between 1106 and 1538, it was the church of an Augustine priory, Southwark Priory, dedicated to the Virgin Mary, Saint Mary across the river. After the dissolution of the monastery, it became a parish church, with an additional patron saint, Saint Saviour. The church was in the Diocese of Winchester until 1877. when the parish of St. Saviour, along with other parishes in the south of London, were transferred to the Diocese of Rochester. The current building retains the basic form of the Gothic structure built between 1220 and 1420, although the nave is a later 19th century reconstruction. The 16th century London historian John Stowe recorded an account of the origins of the St. Mary Priory in Southwark, that he heard from Bartholomew Linstard, who had been the last prior when the priory was dissolved. Linstard claimed that it was founded as a nunnery long before the Norman conquest, by a maiden named Mary, from the profits of a ferry on Thames she had inherited from her parents. Later it was converted into a priest's college by Swithin, a noble lady. And finally, in 1106, it was rededicated as an Augustine priory. The church was badly damaged in the Great Fire of 1012, and reconstruction took place in the 13th century, although the exact dates are not known. In its reconstructed state we can still see the basic plan, as it has survived to this day. And we know that the church had a cruciform plan. In the 1390s, the church was again damaged by fire, and around 1420, the Bishop of Winchester, Henry Beaufort, helped rebuild the south transept and complete the tower. From here we're going to the British Museum, a public museum dedicated to human history, art and culture, which is located in the Bloomsbury area of London. Its permanent collection of 8 million works is the largest in the world, and it tells us the story of human culture from its beginnings to the present date. Entry to the British Museum is free, as are many other museums around London. This was the first national public museum to cover all areas of knowledge. It ranks third in the list of the most visited art museums in the world. The museum was established in 1753, based largely on the collection of Anglo-Irish physician and scientist Sir Hans Sloane, having first been opened to the public in 1759 in Montague House, on the site of the current building. Although today it is mainly a museum of cultural artifacts and antiquities, the British Museum was founded as a universal museum. Its founding lies in the will of the Anglo-Irish physician and naturalist from Ulster, London, Sir Hans Sloane. During his lifetime, and especially after he married the widow of a wealthy Jamaican planter, Sloane amassed a large collection of curiosities, and not wishing to see his collection destroyed after his death, bequeathed it to King George II for the nation for the sum of £20,000. At the time, Sloane's collection consisted of approximately 71,000 objects of all kinds, including approximately 40,000 printed books, 7,000 manuscripts, natural history specimens, including 337 volumes of dried plants, prints and drawings, including those of Albrecht Dürer, and antiquities from Sudan, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and the ancient Near and Far East, and the Americas. In the early 19th century, the foundations of an extensive sculpture collection began to be laid, and Greek, Roman, and Egyptian artifacts dominated the antiquities displays. After the defeat of the French army at the Battle of the Nile in 1801, the British Museum acquired several Egyptian sculptures, and in 1802, King George III presented the Rosetta Stone, the key to deciphering the hieroglyphs. gifts and antiquities from Henry Salt, the British Consul General in Egypt, beginning with a colossal bust of Ramses II in 1818, laid the foundation for the monumental Egyptian sculpture. Many Greek sculptures followed, and the first purpose-built exhibition space for the Parthenon marble sculpture collection was created. The ancient Near East collection had its beginnings in 1825 with the purchase of Assyrian and Babylonian antiquities from the widow of Claudius James Rich. Today, the museum no longer houses natural history collections, and the books and manuscripts it once held are now part of the independent British Library. However, the museum retains its universality in its collection of artifacts representing world cultures, ancient and modern. The original 1753 collection had grown to over 13 million objects at the British Museum, 70 million at the Natural History Museum, and 150 million at the British Library. The round reading room, which was designed by the architect Sidney Smirke, was opened in 1857. For nearly 150 years, scholars have come here to consult the museum's vast library. The reading room closed in 1997, when the National Library, known as the British Library, moved to the new building at St. Pancras. Today it has been transformed into the Walter and Leonard Annenberg Center. Lord Foster's glass roof, the grand central court of the museum, opened in the year 2000. Although it undoubtedly improved circulation around the museum, it was criticized for its lack of exhibition spaces, at a time when the museum was in serious financial difficulties and many galleries were closed to the public. At the same time, the African collection, that had been housed temporarily at number 6 in Burlington Gardens, was given a new gallery in the North Wing, founded by the Sainsbury family, with a donation of £25 million. From the British Museum we set out on foot for a walk through the streets of London, admiring the architecture and trying to find old and interesting buildings. One of the buildings that caught our attention was the Royal Opera House, which is an important performing arts venue in Covent Garden, in the centre of London. The large building is often referred to simply as Covent Garden, after a previous use of the site. It is the home of the Royal Opera House, the Royal Ballet, and the Royal Opera House Orchestra. The first theatre on the site, the Royal Theatre, opened in 1732 and served for the first 100 years of its history as a performance hall. In 1734, the first ballet was presented. A year later, the first opera season began, with works written by George Friedrich Handel. Many of his operas and operettes were written especially for Covent Garden and premiered there. The current building is the third theatre on the site, following the disastrous fires of 1808 and 1856 in the previous buildings. The facade, foyer, and auditorium date from 1858, but almost all other elements of the current complex date from extensive reconstructions in the 1990s. On our walks through the streets, we found the Victoria Embankment Gardens, which are a series of gardens on the north side of the River Thames, between Blackfriars Bridge and Westminster Bridge. Between 1865 and 1870, the North Embankment and the sewer were built by Sir Joseph Bazalgette. In 1874, gardens were created on reclaimed land on the inner side of the road, called the Victoria Embankment. 4 sections were created: the Temple Garden to the east, the Main Garden to the west, originally known as the Adelphi Gardens, and 2 further sections to the south, following the bend of Thames. The gardens are now under the control of the city of Westminster. Across the road on the bank of Thames is London's Cleopatra's Needle, which is one of a pair of obelisks, collectively called Cleopatra's Needles, which were moved from the ruins of the Caesareum in Alexandria, Egypt, in the 19th century. Inscribed by Thutmose III and later Ramses II of the Egypt New Kingdom, the obelisk was moved in the 12th century BC to Alexandria, where it remained for over 18,000 years. It was gifted to the United Kingdom in the 1890s by the ruler of Egypt and Sudan, Muhammad Ali, to commemorate the victories of Lord Nelson at the Battle of the Nile and Sir Ralph Abercrombie at the Battle of Alexandria in 1801. Although the British government welcomed the gesture, it refused to pay to move the obelisk to London. The obelisk remained in Alexandria until 1877, when Sir William James Erasmus Wilson, a distinguished anatomist and dermatologist, sponsored its transport from Alexandria to London at a cost of around £10,000, the equivalent of over £1 million today. It was later erected on the Victoria Embankment in Westminster in 1878. Nearby is the Embankment Pier, located on the north bank of the river just off Hungerford Bridge, and the Embankment Tube Station, close to Charing Cross Station. The Embankment is a departure point for the River Thames sightseeing cruise, which operates between Westminster Pier and Greenwich Pier. From here we can admire the London Eye, or the Millennium Wheel, a cantilevered observation wheel on the south bank of the river. It is the tallest cantilevered observation wheel in Europe, and the most popular paid tourist attraction in the United Kingdom, with over 3 million visitors annually. The structure is 135 meters high, and the wheel has the diameter of 120 meters. When it was opened to the public in the year 2000, it was the tallest wheel in the world. Now it is the 6th tallest. Nearby we found Westminster Abbey Choir School, a preparatory boarding school for boys in Westminster, London, and the only choir school left in the United Kingdom that educates exclusively choirists, so only choir boys can go to this school. Located in the Dean's Yard near Westminster Abbey, it educates around 30 boys ages between 8 and 13 who sing in the Westminster Abbey Choir, take part in state and national occasions, and give concerts around the world. In front of the building is the Westminster Scholars' War Memorial, also known as the Crimean and Indian Mutiny Memorial. It is a memorial from 1861 and commemorates 19 former pupils of Westminster School who died in the two wars. 10 in the Crimean War of 1854 to 1856 and 9 in the Indian Mutiny of 1857 to 1858. The monument was designed in the High Victorian Gothic style by George Gilbert Scott, Superintendent of Works for Westminster Abbey between 1849 and 1878. Adjacent to the Westminster Abbey Choir School is Westminster Abbey. Officially St. Peter's Collegiate Church of Westminster, this is an Anglican church. Since 1066, it has been the site of the coronations of 40 English and British monarchs, and the burial place for 18 English, Scottish and British monarchs, and at least 16 royal weddings have taken place at the monastery since 1100. Although the origins of the church are obscure, there was certainly a monastery in operation from the mid-10th century that housed Benedictine monks. The church received its first grand building in the 1060s, under the auspices of the English king Edward the Confessor, who is buried inside. The construction of the current church began in 1245 by order of Henry III. The monastery was dissolved in 1559, and the church was made the Church of England directly responsible to the sovereign by Elizabeth I. In 1987, the Abbey, along with the Palace of Westminster and St. Margaret's Church, were designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites due to its historical and symbolical significance. The Gothic architecture of the church is mainly inspired by the 13th century French and English styles, although some sections of the church feature early Romanesque or later Baroque modern styles. The Henry VII Chapel at the east end of the church is a typical example of Gothic architecture. The Abbey is the burial place of over 3,300 people, many of whom have been important in British history: monarchs, prime ministers, laureate poets, actors, scientists, military leaders, and the unknown soldier. Due to the fame of the figures buried here, the artist William Morris described the monastery in 1900 as the National Valhalla. Across the road from Westminster Abbey is the Palace of Westminster, the meeting place of the UK Parliament. It is commonly referred to as the House of Parliament after the House of Commons and the House of Lords, the two legislative chambers that occupy the building. The building was originally built in the 11th century as a royal palace, and Westminster's Hall survives from this era. The palace is one of the centers of political life in the United Kingdom. Westminster has become a metonymy for the Parliament of the United Kingdom and the British government, and the Westminster system of government commemorates the name of the palace. The Palace of Westminster was the main royal residence of the kings of England between the 11th century and 1512, when fire destroyed the royal apartments. The monarch moved into the adjacent Whitehall Palace, now also largely destroyed. But the rest of the palace continued to serve as the home of the Parliament of England, which had met here since the 13th century. Many palace buildings were rebuilt over the following centuries to make them more suitable for housing both the Parliament and the three courts that were then based in Westminster Hall. In 1834, a second large fire destroyed most of the palace. The only significant surviving structure was Westminster Hall, part of the neighboring cloisters, St. Mary Undercroft Chapel, and the Jewel Tower. The palace's Elizabeth Tower, also called the Big Ben, has become an instantly recognizable landmark of London and the United Kingdom in general, one of the most popular tourist attractions in the city and an emblem of the city. The Elizabeth Tower is the clock tower of the Palace of Westminster in London, and it contains the Great Clock, a clock with 5 bells. The tower is nicknamed the Big Ben, a name that was originally applied only to the largest bell of the clock. The tower was officially called the Clock Tower until 2012, when it was renamed to mark Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. The tower was designed by Augustus Pugin in a perpendicular Gothic revival style and was completed in 1859. It is elaborately decorated and includes symbols relating to the four nations of the United Kingdom, the Tudor dynasty, and the Latin inscription of Queen Victoria. The tower is 96 meters high, and the climb from the ground level to the belfry is 334 steps. Its base is square, measuring 12 meters on each side. The dials of the clock have a diameter of 6.9 meters. The clock uses its original mechanism and was the largest and most accurate four-faced chime clock in the world at its completion. It was designed by Edmund Beckett Denison and George Airy, Astronomer Royal, and built by Edward John Dent and Frederick Dent. It is known for its reliability and can be adjusted by adding or removing pre-decimal pennies from the pendulum. The Great Bell was cast by the Whitechapel Bell Foundry and weighs 13.5 tons. It also has 4 quarter bells, which ring every quarter hour. We were lucky enough to see a scene from a movie that was being shot at the time, but we don't know which movie it is from. So if you know, please drop us a message in the comment section below. All we can say is that the experience was very interesting. We also passed the Horse Guards, a historical building in the city of Westminster, between Whitehall and Horse Guards Parade. Built in the 18th century, replacing an earlier building used as barracks and stables for the house cavalry. Between the beginning of the 18th century and 1858, this was the main military headquarters of the British Empire. The Horse Guards was originally the entrance to the Whitehall Palace and later to St. James Palace, and for this reason it is still ceremoniously defended by the King's Guard. Although still in military use, part of the building houses the Household Cavalry Museum, which is open to the public. It also acts as a gateway between Whitehall and St. James's Park. For the time being, we are stopping here, as it's been a long day of sightseeing, but we will meet again in a few weeks, right here, to continue walking through the streets of London. Thank you very much for your support, and if you liked today's video, subscribe to the channel by smashing that subscribe button, leave a like and share this video with others, and we will see you in the future with part 2 of this clip. See you soon!